My husband slapped me across the face when I told him I was 4 months pregnant. The moment his hand connected with my cheek, I felt something inside me break. Not my spirit, something else. Something that had been holding me back from seeing the truth. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. Comment below where you're watching this from right now and what time it is in your location. Seriously, I want to know. Are you watching this at work, late at night, during your lunch break? Drop a comment and let me know. Also, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. You're going to want to hear how this story ends, trust me. Now let me tell you everything. My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old. 3 years ago, I married a man named Marcus. On our wedding day, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted. Successful, charming, confident. He had a good job as an accountant at a mid-size firm. He drove a nice car. He always knew what to say. My family loved him. My friends said I'd found a good one. For the first year, everything seemed perfect. Or at least, I told myself it was perfect. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified and excited at the same time. We'd talked about kids before. Marcus always said he wanted them eventually. So when I saw those 2 lines on the pregnancy test, I thought he'd be happy. I thought this was the next step in our life together. I planned this whole special way to tell him. I went to the store and bought a tiny onesie. It was white with little blue stars on it. I wrapped it in a gift box. I made his favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread. I lit candles. I put on a nice dress. I wanted everything to be perfect. When Marcus came home from work that evening, he seemed tired. A little distant, but I brushed it off. I served dinner. We ate and talked about his day at the office, normal stuff. After we finished eating, I brought out the box. I was smiling so big my face hurt. I said, "I have a surprise for you." He looked at the box with this blank expression. No curiosity, no excitement, just blank. He opened it slowly, pulled out the onesie, stared at it for what felt like forever. Then he looked up at me. His eyes were cold. "Empty," he said. "Is this some kind of joke?" My smile faded. I said, "No, I'm pregnant. We're having a baby." The silence that followed was terrible. He just kept staring at me like I'd told him I'd burned his house down. Then he said, "How far along?" I told him 4 months. His face changed completely. The coldness turned into anger. He stood up from the table so fast his chair fell backward and crashed on the floor. He started yelling, saying I'd done this on purpose, saying I'd trapped him, saying I was ruining his life, saying he'd told me he wasn't ready for kids, and I'd gone behind his back. But here's the thing, we talked about it. 6 months ago, Marcus had said we should stop being careful. He'd said whatever happens, happens. He'd smiled when he said it. He'd pulled me close and kissed my forehead. So I stopped taking my birth control. I thought we were on the same page. But now, standing in our kitchen with him yelling at me, I realized he'd been lying. About that, about probably everything. I tried to calm him down. I said, "Marcus, we talked about this. You said you wanted this." That's when he slapped me, hard, across my left cheek. The sound echoed in the kitchen. My head snapped to the side. For a second I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. There was just this hot, burning pain spreading across my face. I touched my cheek. It was already swelling, I could feel it. And I just stood there, one hand on my burning face, the other instinctively moving to my stomach to protect the baby growing inside me. Marcus stood there with his hands still raised. His face was twisted into this ugly expression. He looked shocked at what he'd done, but not sorry. He didn't say sorry. He said, "You did this on purpose. You got pregnant on purpose to trap me." His voice was shaking, not from regret, from anger. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Like this was my fault. I picked up my phone from the counter. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Marcus saw what I was doing and his tone changed instantly. It went soft, gentle, manipulative, that tone he used when he wanted something from me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, calling my sister. He lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, hard, hard enough that I gasped from the pain. He said, "You're not telling anyone about this. Do you understand me?" I looked down at his hand wrapped around my wrist. His fingers were digging into my skin, leaving white pressure marks. Then I looked up at his face. I said, "Let go of me." Something in my voice must have surprised him because he did. He released my wrist and stepped back. I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. He was trying to figure out his next move. Trying to figure out how to control this situation. Control me. "Natalie, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean it. You just shocked me with the news. I wasn't ready to hear it. You know how I get when I'm surprised. You should have picked a better time to tell me." There it was, already making it my fault. already twisting the situation so that somehow I was responsible for his violence. He said, "You should have been more thoughtful about how you told me. You should have prepared me better. This is a big deal. You can't just spring something like this on someone." I felt something cold settle in my chest. This man standing in front of me, making excuses for hitting his pregnant wife, was someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe I did recognize him. Maybe this was who he'd always been and I'd just been too blind to see it. I stepped backward, putting the kitchen island between us, creating distance, creating a barrier. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I said, "I'm going to Emma's house." Emma is my older sister. She lives about 20 minutes away. Marcus's face changed again. The fake softness disappeared. He said, "Don't be dramatic. We can talk about this. We're adults. We're married. This is what married people do. They have disagreements and they work through them." I said, "You hit me, Marcus. You hit your pregnant wife." He had the nerve to say, "I barely touched you." That's when I knew. I knew with absolute certainty that if I stayed, it would get worse. If I stayed, he'd do it again. And maybe next time it wouldn't just be a slap. Maybe next time he'd do something that couldn't be hidden or explained away. I grabbed my purse and my keys from the counter. Marcus's expression darkened. All pretense of sorry or gentle was gone now. He said, "You walk out that door and you're making a huge mistake. You think you can make it without me. You think anyone else is going to want you." But I didn't answer. I just walked to the door, unlocked it, walked out, got in my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition, but I did it. I started the car, I backed out of the driveway, and I didn't look back, not once. Even though every instinct in my body was screaming at me to turn around, to apologize, to make it right, to fix it, but I didn't, I just drove. Emma must have seen my car pull up from her window because she opened the door before I even knocked. She took one look at my face and her expression changed from confused to horrified. The handprint was already visible, angry and red against my pale skin. She said, "Oh my God, Sarah, what happened?" And that's when I started crying. Not because of the slap, not because my face hurt, but because I'd finally admitted to myself what I'd known for months, maybe years. My husband didn't love me. He probably never had. This marriage was a lie, and I'd been living in that lie, accepting it, making excuses for it for 3 whole years. Emma pulled me inside, sat me down on her couch. Her husband Ryan appeared in the doorway holding their baby daughter. He took one look at my face and his jaw clenched, but he didn't say anything. He just quietly took the baby to her room and gave us space. Emma disappeared into her kitchen and came back with ice wrapped in a dish towel. She pressed it gently against my cheek. The cold hurt but also helped. She said, "Tell me everything, don't leave anything out." So I did. I told her about finding out I was pregnant, about how excited I'd been, about the onesie and the special dinner and how I'd thought Marcus would be happy. I told her how his face had fallen when he opened the box, how he'd accused me of trapping him, how he'd yelled and then slapped me, how he'd grabbed my wrist and tried to stop me from leaving, how he'd immediately started making it my fault, blaming me for his reaction, saying I should have told him differently. Emma's face got darker and darker as I talked. When I finally stopped, she said, "Sarah, you know this is abuse, right?" I nodded. I did know, of course I knew. But hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I said, "I kept thinking it would get better. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I just did things right, he'd be happy. He'd love me the way I loved him." Emma grabbed my hand. She said, "That's what they want you to think, that it's your fault." "But it's not, Sarah. It was never your fault." But then something happened that I didn't expect. I kept talking. I started telling Emma things I'd never told anyone before, things I'd been too ashamed to say out loud, things I'd minimized and explained away and pretended weren't that bad. And what I told her next shocked even her. Because the slap wasn't the worst thing Marcus had done to me, not even close. I just told my sister Emma about the slap, about Marcus hitting me when I revealed I was pregnant. But as I sat there on her couch with ice pressed against my swollen cheek, I realized the slap was just the surface. There was so much more underneath, so much I'd been hiding, even from myself. Emma squeezed my hand and said, "What else, Sarah? What else has he done?" And that's when everything came pouring out. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of slowly losing myself, 3 years of being told I was the problem. I started from the beginning. Marcus controlled all our money, every single penny. When we got married, he convinced me to close my personal bank account and put everything into a joint account. He said it would be easier that way, more efficient. Couples should share everything, he said. It made sense at the time. But then he was the only one with the debit card. He was the only one who could see the statements. He was the only one who made decisions about what we spent money on. I had to ask him for money, for everything. If I needed to buy groceries, I had to ask. If I needed gas for my car, I had to ask. If I wanted to get my hair cut or buy new clothes or grab coffee with a friend, I had to ask. And he'd question everything. He'd say, "Why do you need your hair cut? You just got it cut." Even if it had been 4 months, he'd say, "Why do you need new clothes? What's wrong with the ones you have?" He'd say, "Coffee is expensive. Can't you just make it at home?" He gave me a limit, $20. I could spend up to $20 without asking his permission first. Anything over that, I had to get approval. Do you know what that does to you? Having to ask your husband if you can buy a pair of shoes. Having to explain why you need tampons or shampoo or a birthday gift for your mom. It makes you feel small, worthless, like a child who can't be trusted. But it wasn't just money. Marcus isolated me from everyone I cared about. It happened so slowly I didn't even notice it at first. He started with my friends. My best friend from college, Jess, he said she was a bad influence. He said she was jealous of our relationship. He said she'd always been single and miserable and she wanted me to be miserable too. He'd get upset whenever I made plans with her. He'd say, "I thought we were spending tonight together." Or, "I guess I'll just be alone then," making me feel guilty for having friends. Eventually, it was easier to just stop seeing Jess. Stop returning her calls. Stop making plans. She tried for a while to keep in touch, but I kept canceling, kept making excuses. Eventually, she stopped trying. Marcus did the same thing with my other friends, one by one. He always had a reason. Katie was too loud and obnoxious. Michelle was irresponsible with money. Dana was sleeping around, and that reflected badly on me. He picked them apart until I started to believe him. Until I cut them all out of my life. Then he went after my job. I used to work as a receptionist at a dental office. I liked it. The pay was decent. My coworkers were nice. My boss, Dr. Martin, was this sweet older man who'd been a dentist for 30 years. He had grandkids. He'd show me photos of them all the time. He was kind and respectful and treated everyone well. But Marcus decided Dr. Martin was attracted to me. He said the way Dr. Martin looked at me was inappropriate. He said a man that age being friendly to a young woman meant something else. Something bad. I told Marcus he was wrong. I told him Dr. Martin was just nice, but Marcus wouldn't let it go. He'd bring it up constantly. He'd say, "Did your boss flirt with you today?" Or, "I bet Dr. Martin loves having you around the office." He made it so uncomfortable that I started dreading going to work. Started feeling anxious every time Dr. Martin talked to me, wondering if Marcus was right, if there was something inappropriate happening that I was too naive to see. Finally, Marcus said I needed to quit. For my own safety, he said. For our marriage, he said. Dr. Martin was clearly interested in me and it was disrespectful to Marcus for me to keep working there, so I quit. I gave my 2 weeks' notice. Dr. Martin was confused and sad to see me go. He asked if everything was okay. I lied and said I wanted to focus on other things. I didn't tell him the truth. I was too embarrassed. After I quit, Marcus said I should take some time off before finding another job. Just relax, he said. Enjoy being home. He was making good money. We didn't need my income right away, so I stayed home. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into a year, and I never went back to work. I became completely financially dependent on him. Exactly what he wanted. Marcus also made me delete all my social media accounts. Facebook, Instagram, everything. He said other men might message me and he didn't want to deal with the disrespect. He said social media was toxic anyway. It made people compare their lives to others and feel bad about themselves. Wouldn't I be happier without it? So I deleted everything. And when I did, I lost touch with even more people. Friends from high school. Cousins I'd kept in contact with online. People who might have noticed something was wrong. He tracked my location on my phone. He said it was for safety, so he'd know where I was in case of an emergency, but really it was about control. If I went to the grocery store and stopped somewhere else, even just to browse, he'd call me. "Where are you?" he'd ask. "Why did you stop at Target? I thought you were just getting groceries." I'd have to explain, justify, prove I wasn't doing anything wrong. He read my text messages, my emails. He'd go through my phone while I was in the shower or asleep. He installed something on my computer, some kind of monitoring software. I found it one day when my laptop was running slow and I was trying to figure out why. There it was. A program I hadn't installed. A program that was tracking everything I typed, every website I visited, every email I sent. When I confronted him about it, he said he'd put it there to protect me from viruses. to make sure I wasn't clicking on anything dangerous. He made it sound reasonable, like he was doing it for me. Marcus even timed how long I took in the shower. If I was in there longer than 15 minutes, he'd knock on the door. "You okay in there?" he'd ask. Not because he cared, because he was monitoring me, making sure I knew he was paying attention, making sure I knew I was being watched. And the criticism, God, the constant criticism, nothing I did was ever right. I'd cook dinner and he'd say it was too salty or not salty enough or overcooked or undercooked. I'd clean the house and he'd find something I missed, dust on a bookshelf, a spot on a mirror. He'd point it out like I'd failed some test. He'd say, "I work all day and I come home to this," like I'd been sitting around doing nothing. My appearance was constantly scrutinized. If I wore makeup, I was trying too hard. Who was I dressing up for? If I didn't wear makeup, I was letting myself go. Didn't I care about looking nice for him? If I wore fitted clothes, they were too revealing. Other men would look at me. If I wore loose clothes, they were frumpy. I was embarrassing him. There was no winning, no way to be right, no way to be enough. Emma was crying by the time I finished talking. Tears were running down her face. She said, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell anyone?" I looked at her and I felt so much shame, so much embarrassment. I said, "Because I thought it was my fault. Because I thought if I just tried harder, if I just did things right, he'd stop. He'd be happy. And because part of me still loved him, or I loved who I thought he was in the beginning." Emma pulled me into a hug. She said, "None of this is your fault. You hear me? None of it. He's been abusing you this whole time, controlling you, isolating you, breaking you down piece by piece. That's what abusers do. They don't hit you on the first date. They're charming and perfect at first. Then slowly, so slowly you don't notice, they take everything from you. Your friends, your job, your money, your confidence, your sense of self. Until you're so lost and confused that you don't even know who you are anymore." She was right. I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd spent 3 years becoming whoever Marcus wanted me to be, shrinking myself, silencing myself, apologizing for existing, and I was tired. So tired of walking on eggshells, tired of being afraid, tired of feeling like I was always doing something wrong. That's when Emma's phone started ringing. We both looked at the screen. It was a number we didn't recognize. Emma answered it on speaker. A man's voice said, "Is this Emma Peterson?" Emma said yes. The man said, "This is Officer Davis with the Portland Police Department. We received a call from a Marcus Chen. He says his wife is missing. He's very concerned. He says she's pregnant and may be in danger. Is Sarah with you?" Emma and I looked at each other. Marcus had called the police. He was trying to make it seem like I was the problem, like I was unstable, like I'd run away and he was just a concerned husband. Emma said into the phone, "Sarah is with me. She's safe. She left her husband because he assaulted her. She has a visible bruise on her face. She's not missing. She's escaping." There was a pause. Then Officer Davis said, "Is Sarah able to come to the phone?" Emma handed me her phone. I said, "This is Sarah." Officer Davis asked if I was okay, if I was in danger, if I needed medical attention. I told him about the slap, about Marcus grabbing my wrist, about being afraid to go home. He said, "Ma'am, I'm glad you're somewhere safe. Have you considered filing a police report?" I hadn't. But now, hearing him ask, I realized I should. Officer Davis said he could send someone to Emma's house to take my statement and photograph my injuries, or I could come to the station. Emma said we'd come to the station. She wanted to get out of the house anyway, wanted to be somewhere official, somewhere safe. We hung up and Emma said, "Let's go, right now. Let's get this documented before the bruise fades." On the way to the police station, my phone rang. 47 times, I counted, all from Marcus. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. I could see them piling up. Emma said, "Don't listen to them. Whatever he's saying, it's manipulation. It's him trying to get control back." But later, when we got home from the police station, Emma listened to them. Every single one. She wanted to know what we were dealing with. The first few were apologetic. "Baby, please call me back. I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I love you so much. You and the baby, you're my whole world. Please just come home and we'll talk about this. We'll figure it out together." Then they got angry. "You know what, Sarah? This is typical. You always overreact to everything. I barely touched you and you're acting like I beat you or something. You're being ridiculous. Grow up and come home." Then they got threatening. "If you think you're going to take my child away from me, you're wrong. I'll fight you. I'll make sure everyone knows what you're really like. No judge is going to give custody to a woman who abandons her husband over nothing." Emma's jaw got tighter with each message. When the last one finished, she said, "We're keeping all of these. They're evidence. He's threatening you. He's showing exactly who he is. She was right. Marcus was revealing himself. No more charm, no more pretending, just rage and control and entitlement. The mask had come off. That night, Emma set me up in her guest room. She brought me tea and extra pillows and made sure I was comfortable. Before she left, she said, "You're going to get through this, I promise, you're stronger than you think." I wanted to believe her, but lying there in the dark, feeling my baby move inside me for the first time, those little butterfly flutters, I was terrified. Terrified of Marcus. Terrified of being a single mom. Terrified of what came next. But I was also something else. I was angry, angry at Marcus for what he'd done. Angry at myself for letting it go on so long. And that anger, that fire burning in my chest, it felt like power, like strength, like the beginning of something. I put my hand on my stomach and I whispered to my baby, "I'm going to protect you. I promise, we're going to be okay." The next morning, Emma took me to see a lawyer. And what that lawyer found when she started digging into Marcus's life shocked both of us. Because Marcus wasn't just an abusive husband. He was hiding something, something big, something that would change everything. The lawyer's name was Lisa Rodriguez. Emma had found her online. She specialized in domestic violence cases and had a reputation for being tough and thorough. Her office was small but professional, diplomas on the wall, photos of her with clients who'd won their cases. She was in her 40s with kind eyes but a firm handshake, the kind of person who made you feel safe and believed. I sat across from her desk and told her everything. The slap, the control, the isolation, the financial abuse, the tracking, the criticism, all of it. Lisa listened without interrupting. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she looked up at me and said, "Sarah, you've been living in a domestic violence situation for 3 years. What happened to you is serious. It's criminal. And we're going to make sure Marcus is held accountable." She explained the process. File for divorce. File for a protective order. Document everything. Get medical records from the if I wanted to go and have my injuries officially recorded. Gather evidence of the financial control, the isolated accounts, the monitored phone and computer. Build a case that showed Marcus was dangerous and I needed full custody of our baby when she was born. Then Lisa said something that caught my attention. She said, "I'm also going to look into Marcus's finances. In cases like this, abusers often hide money. They control finances as a way to maintain power. I want to make sure we know exactly what assets exist so you get what you're entitled to in the divorce." I nodded. That made sense. But I didn't think there was much to find. Marcus made decent money as an accountant. Around $95,000 a year. We lived in a modest apartment. Drove normal cars. We weren't rich. There couldn't be that much hidden, right? Wrong, so incredibly wrong. 3 days later, Lisa called me. Her voice sounded different, excited but also confused. She said, "Sarah, can you come to my office? There's something you need to see, and you might want to bring Emma." I went immediately. Emma drove me. We walked into Lisa's office and she had papers spread across her entire desk. Bank statements, investment documents, legal paperwork I didn't understand. Lisa gestured for us to sit. She said, "I started looking into Marcus's finances like I said I would, and I found something big." She pushed a document toward me. It was a bank statement. For an account I'd never seen before, an account at a bank I didn't recognize. The balance showed over $100,000. I stared at it. I said, "I don't understand. Where did this come from?" Lisa said, "That's just one account. There are more." She showed me another statement. Another account. $50,000, then another. $75,000, then another. $90,000. She kept putting papers in front of me and the numbers kept getting bigger. My head was spinning. Emma grabbed my hand. Finally, Lisa said, "In total, Marcus has hidden approximately $380,000 in various accounts. Accounts you knew nothing about. Accounts he never disclosed." I couldn't breathe. $380,000. That was impossible. Marcus only made $95,000 a year. Even if he'd been saving for years, even if he'd never spent a penny, it didn't add up. I said, "Where did he get this money?" Lisa leaned back in her chair. She said, "That's the question I've been trying to answer. Because his salary alone doesn't explain it. Either he has another source of income he hasn't told you about, or he got this money through illegal means." Emma said, "Like what? What kind of illegal means?" Lisa said, "Embezzlement is the most common. People who work in finance or accounting have access to company funds. If they're careful, if they're smart, they can siphon off money over time without anyone noticing. It's not uncommon in divorce cases like this to discover one spouse has been stealing from their employer." My mind was racing. Marcus, stealing from his company, it seemed impossible. But then again, a week ago I would have said it was impossible for him to hit me. I clearly didn't know my husband at all. Lisa continued, I've contacted a forensic accountant, someone who specializes in tracing money and finding hidden assets. They're going to go through these accounts and try to figure out where the money came from. In the meantime, I'm filing a motion to freeze these accounts, so Marcus can't move the money or hide it somewhere else. I sat there trying to process this information. $380,000. Hidden accounts, possible embezzlement. This was so much bigger than I'd thought. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was potentially criminal. Lisa said, Sarah, I need you to understand something. If Marcus has been stealing from his company and we report it, there will be serious consequences. He could go to prison. His life will be destroyed. But you need to think about yourself and your baby right now. You need to think about what's best for you. I looked at Emma. She was staring at me with this fierce expression. She said, he hit you, he abused you, he controlled you, he stole 3 years of your life. And now we find out he might be a criminal. Sarah, you don't owe him anything, not your silence, not your protection, nothing. She was right. I didn't owe Marcus anything. I said to Lisa, do whatever you need to do, find out where that money came from. If he's been stealing, he should face the consequences. Lisa nodded. She said, I'll be in touch as soon as I know more. Emma and I left the office. We got in her car and just sat there for a moment in silence. Finally, Emma said, Are you okay? I said, I don't know anything anymore. The man I thought I married doesn't exist. He never did. I've been living with a stranger, a liar, a criminal. Emma squeezed my hand. But you're out now, you escaped, that's what matters. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the money, where it came from, what Marcus had been doing for the past 3 years while I was home alone, isolated and controlled, thinking we were struggling financially while he told me we couldn't afford for me to get a haircut or buy a new pair of jeans. He'd had nearly $400,000 hidden away, and he'd made me beg for $20. The cruelty of it was staggering. 2 days later, something happened that I never expected. I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. A woman's voice said, Is this Sarah Chen? I said yes. The woman said, My name is Jennifer. I need to talk to you about Marcus. My stomach dropped. I said, Who are you? There was a pause. Then Jennifer said, I'm Marcus's girlfriend, or at least I thought I was. I've been seeing him for 2 years. I just found out he's married. I just found out about you. The world tilted. I sat down hard on Emma's couch. Emma, who was in the kitchen making lunch, saw my face and came running over. I put the phone on speaker. Jennifer continued talking. Her voice was shaking. She said, I saw a post on Facebook. Someone shared an article about domestic violence. Your name was mentioned in the comments. Someone said you'd filed a police report against Marcus Chen. I Googled your name and found your wedding announcement from 3 years ago. I couldn't believe it. Marcus told me he was single. He told me he'd never been married. He told me he lived alone. I couldn't speak. Emma grabbed my hand. Jennifer kept talking. She said, We met at a conference 2 years ago, Portland. I live here. Marcus said he traveled for work. He'd visit me every other weekend. Sometimes once a month if he was busy. He'd stay at my apartment. We'd go out to dinner. He'd meet my friends. He said he loved me. He said he wanted to build a future together. And now I find out he's been married this whole time, that he has a wife, that he's having a baby with you. My brain couldn't process this. Marcus had been living 2 separate lives, 2 separate women, 2 separate identities. How was that even possible? Jennifer said, There's more. Sarah, I'm pregnant too, 6 months. I found out 4 months ago. Marcus was so happy when I told him. He said it was the best news he'd ever gotten. He said we'd figure it out together. I felt like I was going to throw up. Emma ran to get me a trash can. I leaned over it, breathing hard, trying not to be sick. Marcus had gotten another woman pregnant. 4 months before I told him about my pregnancy. He'd been happy about her baby. And then 2 months later he'd slapped me when I told him about mine. Jennifer was still talking. She sounded like she was crying now. She said, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I never would have been with him if I'd known he was married. I feel sick. I feel like my entire life is a lie. I found my voice. I said, Jennifer, it's not your fault. You didn't know. He lied to both of us. Jennifer said, What do we do? How do we make him pay for this? I thought about it. About the hidden money, about the abuse, about the double life. About the 2 pregnant women he deceived and manipulated. I said, I have a lawyer. She's been investigating Marcus's finances. We found some things. Things that suggest he might be involved in illegal activity. Would you be willing to talk to her? Jennifer didn't hesitate. She said, yes, absolutely yes, I want him to face consequences for what he's done. I gave her Lisa's contact information. We talked for a few more minutes. Jennifer told me more about her relationship with Marcus, how he'd been the perfect boyfriend, attentive, romantic, generous, how he'd showered her with gifts and affection, how he'd made her feel special. It was the same pattern he'd used with me, the same manipulation, the same lies. After we hung up, Emma and I just sat there in shock. Finally, Emma said, he's been living two separate lives for 2 years, two girlfriends, two pregnancies. How did he manage that? I shook my head. I don't know, but the business trips he took, the weekends he said he had to work, the late nights at the office, it was all lies. He was with her. The next day, Lisa called me again. She said, Sarah, the forensic accountant has been going through Marcus's financial records. They found something, the money in those hidden accounts, it's coming from Marcus's employer. Over the past 3 years, he's been embezzling funds. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there, then bigger amounts. He'd alter records, move money between accounts, cover his tracks. But he got greedy. He got sloppy. The patterns are clear. I felt cold all over. Marcus was a thief, a criminal. Lisa continued, there's more. Jennifer called me. She told me about their relationship, about her pregnancy, and she told me something else. Marcus has been giving her money, large amounts. $15,000 last month. $20,000 the month before that. He told her he'd gotten a big bonus at work. But there's no record of any bonus in his employment records. He's been giving her stolen money. This was so much worse than I'd imagined. Marcus hadn't just embezzled money for himself. He'd used it to fund his double life, to impress another woman, to play the generous boyfriend while telling me we couldn't afford basic necessities. Lisa said, Sarah, I need your permission to report this to the authorities. If we do, Marcus will be arrested. He'll be charged with embezzlement, possibly fraud, possibly other financial crimes. He could go to prison for a long time. I didn't even hesitate. I said, do it, report everything. Lisa said, I'll contact the FBI. Financial crimes like this at this level, that's their jurisdiction. They'll investigate, and if they find what I think they're going to find, Marcus will be arrested soon. 2 days later, it happened. Marcus was arrested at his office, in front of his boss, in front of his coworkers, in front of everyone. FBI agents walked in during a morning meeting. They put him in handcuffs. Read him his rights, let him out. I found out from the news. Someone at his office had filmed it on their phone, posted it online. It went viral locally. Accountant arrested for embezzling nearly $400,000. I watched the video once, just once. Marcus looked so small in those handcuffs, so shocked, so scared, like he couldn't believe this was happening, like he'd thought he was too smart to get caught. The comments under the video were brutal, people calling him a thief, a scammer, a fraud. His reputation was destroyed in an instant. That same day, Marcus called me from jail. He was allowed one phone call and he used it to call me. I shouldn't have answered, I should have blocked the number, but I needed to hear what he'd say. Needed to hear if he'd finally take responsibility. He said, Sarah, you have to help me. This is all a mistake, a misunderstanding. You have to tell them you made everything up, the abuse allegations, the financial stuff. You were angry about the pregnancy and you lied. Please, baby, please. I laughed, I actually laughed. I said, you want me to lie for you, after everything you've done? He said, I love you, I've always loved you, this is just a rough patch. We can get through this together, but I need you to help me. I said, you hit me, you controlled me, you isolated me, you had a whole other girlfriend. You got her pregnant too. You've been stealing from your company for years. And you want me to help you. There was silence on the other end. Then Marcus said something that showed me who he really was. He said, if you don't help me, I'll make sure you never see a dime in the divorce. I'll make sure you lose custody of the baby. I'll tell everyone you're an unfit mother. I'll destroy you. I felt nothing. No fear, no sadness, no anger, just nothing. I said, goodbye, Marcus, and I hung up. Emma, who'd been listening to the whole conversation, said, that's the man you married. That's who he's always been. I nodded. She was right. The charming man I'd fallen in love with had never existed. He'd been a mask, a performance. And now the mask was off and everyone could see the monster underneath. But this story wasn't over yet. Because what happened next at Marcus's trial would reveal even more secrets. Secrets that would make everything we'd already discovered seem small. Marcus's trial was set for 3 months later. 3 months of waiting. 3 months of preparation. 3 months of my pregnancy advancing while my husband sat in jail facing federal charges. The FBI had taken over the investigation. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Marcus hadn't just embezzled $380,000. The final number was closer to 600,000. He'd been stealing from his company for 5 years, long before we even met. He'd created fake vendor accounts, approved fake invoices, moved money into those accounts, and then transferred it to his personal hidden accounts. He'd been so careful, so methodical, until he got greedy. Lisa kept me updated on everything. She said the FBI was building an airtight case. Marcus's lawyer, some expensive attorney his family had hired, was trying to negotiate a plea deal. They wanted to avoid trial, but the prosecutors weren't interested. They wanted to make an example of him: white-collar crime, domestic abuse, multiple victims. They wanted the maximum sentence. Jennifer and I stayed in contact. We talked on the phone every few days. It was strange at first, talking to the other woman, the other person Marcus had deceived, but we weren't enemies. We were both victims of the same man. She told me about her pregnancy, how scared she was to be a single mom, how embarrassed she was that she'd been fooled. I told her I understood. I felt the same way. Jennifer also agreed to testify at the trial. She'd tell the jury about Marcus's lies, about the money he'd given her, about the double life he'd been living. Lisa said having both of us testify would be powerful. It would show a pattern. Show that Marcus was a serial manipulator, someone who used and abused multiple women without remorse. The trial finally started on a cold Monday morning in November. I was 7 months pregnant by then. My belly was huge, I could barely see my feet. Emma came with me to the courthouse, so did her husband Ryan. They sat on either side of me in the gallery. Moral support. Lisa sat at the prosecutor's table as a witness and advisor on the domestic violence aspects. Marcus was led into the courtroom in handcuffs. He'd lost weight. His hair was longer and unkempt. He wasn't wearing his expensive suits anymore, just a plain white shirt and khaki pants the jail had given him. He looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. When his eyes met mine, I saw something flicker across his face. Regret maybe, or just fear. I looked away. I didn't care what he felt. The prosecutor was a woman named Diana Harris. She was in her 50s, sharp, direct, no nonsense. In her opening statement, she laid out the entire case: the embezzlement, the hidden money, the fake accounts, the lies, the abuse, the double life. She said, Marcus Chen is a man who believed he was above the law, above consequences. He stole from his employer, he abused his wife. He deceived multiple women, he lied to everyone in his life, and he did it all without a shred of remorse. Today, we're here to hold him accountable. Marcus's lawyer, a man named Robert Klein, tried to paint a different picture. He said Marcus had made mistakes, bad choices, but he wasn't a monster. He was a man under pressure, work pressure, marriage pressure. He'd made poor decisions, but he didn't deserve to have his life destroyed. It was a weak argument, and everyone in the courtroom could feel it. The prosecution called witnesses. Marcus's boss at the accounting firm testified about discovering the missing money, how they'd noticed discrepancies, how they'd launched an internal investigation, how they'd found the fake accounts and traced them back to Marcus. A forensic accountant testified about the money trail, where it came from, where it went, how Marcus had tried to hide it. An FBI agent testified about the investigation, the evidence they'd collected, the interviews they'd conducted. Then it was my turn. Diana called me to the stand. I walked up slowly. My pregnant belly made everything harder. I was sworn in. Sat down. Diana approached with a kind smile. She said, Mrs. Chen, can you tell the jury about your marriage to the defendant? So I did. I told them everything. The control, the isolation, the financial abuse, the tracking, the criticism, how Marcus had made me quit my job, cut off my friends, delete my social media, ask permission to spend $20. Diana showed the jury photos of my bruised face from the night Marcus hit me. Photos the police had taken. The courtroom was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Then Diana asked, Did you know about your husband's illegal activities? I said, No, I had no idea. He told me we didn't have much money. He made me feel guilty for wanting basic things. And the whole time he had hundreds of thousands of dollars hidden away. Diana asked, How did it make you feel when you discovered the truth? I looked directly at Marcus. He was staring at the table, couldn't even look at me. I said, betrayed, foolish, angry. I gave up everything for him. My job, my friends, my independence, my sense of self. And it was all based on lies. He never loved me. He just wanted to control me. Marcus's lawyer tried to cross-examine me. He tried to suggest I was exaggerating, that the abuse wasn't that bad, That maybe I'd provoked Marcus. That maybe I'd known about the money and was playing victim now to get a better divorce settlement. But I held my ground. I answered every question calmly. Honestly, I didn't let him rattle me. Then Jennifer testified. She told the jury about meeting Marcus, about their 2-year relationship, about believing he was single, about the pregnancy, about the money he'd given her. Marcus's lawyer tried the same tactics with her, suggesting she was a willing participant, that she must have known Marcus was married. But Jennifer was firm. She said, I would never have been with a married man. Marcus lied to me. He deceived me. He used stolen money to buy my trust and affection. I'm a victim just like Sarah. The jury watched everything carefully. 12 faces. Some sympathetic, some angry, some just neutral and focused. I couldn't tell what they were thinking, but I hoped they could see the truth. That Marcus was guilty, that he deserved to be punished. The trial lasted 2 weeks. More witnesses, more evidence, financial records, text messages, emails, voicemails, everything. The prosecution built a mountain of proof. Marcus's lawyer tried to chip away at it, tried to create reasonable doubt. But there was too much, too many lies exposed, too many victims hurt. Finally, it was time for closing arguments. Diana stood before the jury and said, Marcus Chen is a predator, he preys on women, he preys on his employer, he preys on anyone who trusts him, he's a thief, an abuser, a liar, and the evidence proves it beyond any doubt. Don't let him get away with it, hold him accountable. Robert Klein argued that Marcus had already lost everything. His job, his marriage, his reputation. Wasn't that punishment enough? Did he really need to go to prison too? The jury deliberated for 6 hours, 6 long hours of waiting. Emma held my hand the whole time. Finally, the bailiff came out and said they'd reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. My heart was pounding. The jury foreman stood. The judge asked, Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman said, Yes, Your Honor. The judge said, On the count of embezzlement, how do you find? The foreman said, Guilty. Relief flooded through me, but there were more charges. The judge went through each one. Wire fraud, guilty. Money laundering, guilty. Tax evasion, guilty. Domestic violence, guilty. Each time the foreman said guilty, I felt lighter, freer, like chains were being lifted off my chest. Marcus sat there with his head in his hands. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but Marcus shrugged it off. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Marcus was remanded to custody. No bail, he'd remain in jail until sentencing. As they let him out, he looked at me one more time. This time I looked back. I wanted him to see me, see that I'd survived, that I'd won. He mouthed something. I couldn't tell what, I didn't care. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. They wanted a statement. Diana had warned me this might happen. I hadn't planned what to say, but standing there with Emma beside me and my baby kicking inside me, the words came naturally. I said, Marcus Chen is a criminal. He stole money. He abused women. He lived a double life. And today, justice was served. To anyone watching this who's in an abusive relationship, please know you can leave. You can survive. You deserve better. Don't let someone's lies and control define your worth. The reporters asked more questions, but Emma guided me away. We got in Ryan's car and drove back to their house. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but also relieved. It was over. Marcus had been found guilty. He'd face consequences, real consequences. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe fully. 2 weeks later was the sentencing hearing. I didn't have to attend, but I chose to. I wanted to be there, wanted to hear what the judge would say. Marcus was brought in looking even worse than before. The judge asked if he wanted to make a statement. Marcus stood up. His voice was shaky. He said, Your Honor, I made terrible mistakes. I hurt people I cared about. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just want a chance to make things right. The judge stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, Mr. Chen, you had 3 years to make things right. You chose to continue stealing, continue lying, continue abusing. You showed no remorse until you were caught. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you have to face consequences. She paused. I'm sentencing you to 8 years in federal prison. You'll also pay full restitution to your former employer. You'll pay child support for both children once they're born. And you're forbidden from contacting either Sarah Chen or Jennifer Morrison without their explicit written consent. 8 years? Marcus would be 39 when he got out. I'd be 36. Our daughter would be 8 years old enough to understand, old enough to ask questions. The bailiff led Marcus away. He didn't look at me this time, just kept his eyes down, defeated, Broken, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no sadness, just nothing. He was going to prison and I was going to be free. That was enough. After the sentencing, Lisa took me to lunch. She said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Tired, relieved, ready to move on." She smiled. "You should be proud of yourself. You survived something terrible. You fought back. You got justice. Not every victim gets that." She was right. I was lucky. Lucky to have Emma. Lucky to have Lisa. Lucky that the system had worked in my case. I knew many women weren't that lucky. Lisa also handled my divorce. With Marcus in prison, it was straightforward. I got everything, the apartment. What little money was left after restitution and legal fees, full custody of our daughter. Marcus had no rights, no say, no power. The divorce was finalized a month before my due date. I was no longer Mrs. Chen. I was Sarah Mitchell again, my maiden name, my identity, the person I'd been before Marcus. But there was still one more surprise waiting for me. One more thing Marcus had hidden. And when I found out what it was, I realized just how lucky I was to have escaped when I did. My daughter Lily was born on a snowy December morning, 3 weeks after my divorce was finalized, 3 weeks after Marcus was officially out of my life. Emma was with me in the delivery room. She held my hand through every contraction, every push, every moment of pain. And when Lily finally came into the world, crying and perfect and healthy, Emma cried too. She said, "You did it, Sarah. You brought her into a safe world, a better world." Lily had my eyes, my nose, nothing of Marcus that I could see, and I was grateful for that. I didn't want to look at my daughter and see the man who'd hurt me, who'd controlled me, who'd tried to destroy me. The nurses asked if I wanted to put the father's name on the birth certificate. I thought about it for a long time, about Marcus sitting in a prison cell, about the lies and the abuse and the betrayal, about Lily deserving better than to have his name attached to hers. I left the father line blank. Just blank. Lily was mine, only mine. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Emma brought me everything I needed: clean clothes, toiletries, snacks. She took photos of Lily, sent them to our parents and to Jennifer. Jennifer had given birth to her son 2 weeks earlier, a healthy baby boy she named Ethan. We talked on the phone the day after her delivery. She'd cried telling me about it, about how scared she'd been, about how alone she'd felt, about how she wished things had been different. I told her I understood, that we were in this together, that our kids were half-siblings and maybe someday when they were older they could know each other, have a relationship, not defined by Marcus but by their own choice. Jennifer liked that idea. She said it would be nice for Ethan to have a sister, even if the circumstances were complicated. We promised to stay in touch, to support each other. Two single moms connected by the same terrible man who'd hurt us both. When I brought Lily home to Emma's house, there was a surprise waiting. Emma and Ryan had converted their spare room into a nursery. They'd painted the walls a soft yellow, put up curtains with little stars on them, assembled a crib and a changing table, filled the closet with baby clothes and diapers and everything Lily would need. I cried when I saw it. Emma said, "You're staying here as long as you need. This is your home now, yours and Lily's." I lived with Emma and Ryan for 6 months. They became my lifeline, my safety net. They helped with night feedings and diaper changes. They watched Lily when I needed to sleep or shower or just have a moment to myself. Ryan, who'd been quiet through most of this ordeal, told me one night, "You're the strongest person I've ever met. What you've been through, what you've survived, it's incredible." But I didn't feel strong. I felt broken, scared, lost. I started seeing a therapist, a woman named Dr. Michelle Park. She specialized in trauma and domestic violence survivors. Twice a week, I'd sit in her office and talk about Marcus, about the marriage, about the control and the abuse and the lies, about how I'd lost myself, about how I didn't know who I was anymore without someone telling me what to do and how to be. Dr. Park was patient, kind. She never judged me, never made me feel weak or stupid. She said, "Sarah, you were in survival mode for 3 years. Your brain was constantly in fight or flight, constantly trying to keep you safe. Now that you're out, now that you're safe, you have to relearn how to just be, how to exist without fear. It takes time, be patient with yourself." The therapy helped, slowly, week by week. I started to feel less anxious, less afraid. I started to remember who I'd been before Marcus. The girl who'd had friends and hobbies and dreams. The girl who'd laughed easily and trusted people. I wanted to be her again, or some version of her. A version that was wiser, stronger, more careful, but still able to feel joy. 6 months after Lily was born, I got my own apartment. Nothing fancy, a small two-bedroom in a safe neighborhood. Emma cried when I told her I was moving out, not because she wanted me gone but because she was proud. Proud that I was ready. Proud that I was rebuilding my life. I cried too. I said, I couldn't have done any of this without you. You saved my life. I also got a new job. A dental office needed a receptionist. The dentist, Dr. Sarah Lynn, knew my story. I'd been honest in the interview, told her about Marcus, about the divorce, about being a single mom. I expected her to be hesitant, to worry I'd be unreliable or distracted. But she just nodded and said, everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to rebuild. When can you start? The job was good, the pay was decent, my coworkers were friendly, and for the first time in years I had my own money. Money I'd earned. Money I could spend without asking permission. Money that was mine. It felt like freedom, like power, like proof that I could take care of myself and my daughter without needing anyone. But then something happened that reminded me Marcus's story still wasn't completely over. 3 months after I started my new job, I got a letter in the mail. From the prison where Marcus was being held. My first instinct was to throw it away unopened. But curiosity got the better of me. I sat down at my kitchen table while Lily napped and opened it. The letter was 4 pages long, Marcus's handwriting. Messy and desperate. He said he was sorry. That prison had given him time to think. Time to realize what he'd lost. Time to understand how badly he'd hurt me. He said he'd been going to therapy, taking classes, trying to become a better person. He said he wanted to meet Lily, be a father to her. He said he'd changed. Really changed. He begged me to give him another chance. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it back up and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond, didn't write back, didn't send photos or updates or anything. Marcus had made his choices. Now he had to live with the consequences. Lily was 8 months old, happy, healthy, safe. She didn't need a father who'd abused her mother, who'd stolen money, who'd lived a double life. She had me. She had Emma and Ryan. She had people who loved her truly and completely. That was enough. Marcus sent more letters, one every few weeks. I stopped opening them, just threw them away. He also tried to call. The prison has a system where inmates can make collect calls. My phone would ring and I'd see it was from the correctional facility. I never answered. Eventually, I blocked the number. Marcus needed to understand that I'd moved on. That his attempts to manipulate me wouldn't work anymore. That I was done. Then 6 months after Lily's first birthday, something happened that changed everything. Lisa called me. Her voice was serious. She said, Sarah, there's something you need to know. Something the FBI discovered during their ongoing investigation into Marcus's activities. My stomach dropped. I said, what is it? Lisa said Marcus had been planning to leave the country before he was arrested. He'd applied for passports under false names. He'd booked flights to South America. He had money wired to accounts in Brazil. He was going to disappear. I felt cold all over. Lisa continued, they found documents on his computer, plans, lists. One of those lists had your name on it and Jennifer's, and a note that said loose ends to tie up. I couldn't breathe. Lisa said, Sarah, the FBI believes Marcus was planning to hurt you, maybe both of you. He was trying to eliminate witnesses before he fled. If he hadn't been arrested when he was, if the investigation had taken any longer, you might have been in serious danger. I sat down hard on my couch. My hands were shaking. Marcus had been planning to hurt me, maybe kill me. The man I'd married, the father of my child, had been planning to eliminate me like I was a problem to solve. Lisa said, the FBI wanted me to tell you because they're adding more charges. Conspiracy to commit murder. It won't add much to his sentence since he's already serving 8 years, but they wanted you to know. They wanted you to understand how dangerous he really was. After I hung up, I just sat there for a long time. Lily was playing on the floor with her blocks, babbling happily, completely unaware of how close we'd come to disaster if I hadn't left when I did. If I hadn't filed that police report, if Emma hadn't helped me find Lisa, if the FBI hadn't investigated, we might both be dead. That night I called Jennifer, told her what Lisa had told me. Jennifer was silent for a long time. Then she said, we got out, Sarah, we survived, that's what matters. She was right. We'd survived, against all odds, against a man who'd controlled us and lied to us and tried to destroy us. We'd gotten out. We'd rebuilt. We'd won. A year after that phone call, something wonderful happened. I met someone. His name was David Torres. He was a teacher at the elementary school near my work. We met at a coffee shop, both reaching for the last blueberry muffin. He smiled and said, you take it. I said, we could split it. We did. And then we talked for 2 hours. I was terrified at first. Terrified of being hurt again. Terrified of trusting someone. Terrified that David would turn out to be another Marcus. But David was patient. He didn't push. Didn't rush. When I told him about my past, about Marcus and the abuse and everything, he just listened. Really listened. Then he said, "I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm so glad you got out. Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me." We took things slow, very slow. We dated for 6 months before he met Lily. I needed to be sure, needed to protect her, needed to protect myself, but David never complained, never pressured. He said, "I'll wait as long as you need, you're worth waiting for." When he finally met Lily, she loved him instantly. She reached for him, let him hold her, laughed at his silly faces. And I watched them together and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, hope for a future, hope for love. Hope for happiness. David and I got engaged 2 years after we met. He proposed in the same coffee shop where we'd first talked. He got down on one knee with Lily on his hip and said, "Sarah, you're the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I've ever met. Will you marry me?" I said yes. Not because I needed him, but because I wanted him, because he was kind and patient and good, because he showed me what healthy love looked like, because with him I felt safe and seen and valued. We got married in a small ceremony in Emma's backyard, just family and close friends. Lily was 3 years old, she was our flower girl. She took her job very seriously, carefully dropping petals along the path. Emma was my maid of honor. She cried through the whole ceremony, happy tears. She said, "I'm so proud of you, look at how far you've come." Marcus is still in prison, he'll be there for 4 more years. I heard through Lisa that he's tried to appeal his sentence, tried to get parole, been denied every time. I don't think about him much anymore. He's a chapter of my life that's closed. A painful chapter but a closed one. Sometimes Lily asks about her biological father. She's 5 now. Old enough to notice that some kids have dads and she doesn't, or didn't until David came into our lives. I've told her the truth in age-appropriate ways. That her daddy made very bad choices, that he hurt people, that he's away for a long time because of those choices, that it's not her fault, that she is loved by so many people, that David loves her like she's his own daughter. When she's older, I'll tell her the whole story. She deserves to know. But for now, she's happy, thriving, safe, and that's all that matters. Jennifer and I still talk regularly. She's doing well too. She finished her degree, got a good job, started dating someone nice. Her son Ethan is 4. Last summer, we met up at a park halfway between our cities. Lily and Ethan played together. They didn't know the whole story, didn't know they were connected by Marcus. They just played and laughed and had fun. And Jennifer and I watched them and marveled at how far we'd both come. Looking back now, 6 years after that night when Marcus slapped me, I can hardly believe it's the same life. The same person. I'm not the scared, controlled, isolated woman I was then. I'm stronger now. Wiser, I know my worth, I know what I deserve. I know the warning signs, and I'll never ignore them again. If you're watching this and you're in a situation like I was, please hear me, please listen. It's not your fault, the abuse, the control, the manipulation. None of it is your fault, you didn't cause it, you can't fix it. The only thing you can do is leave. And I know that's scary, I know it feels impossible. I know you might not have money or support or anywhere to go, but you have to try, you have to save yourself, because it doesn't get better. It only gets worse. Document everything. Take photos of injuries. Save threatening texts and voicemails. Tell someone you trust, a friend, a family member, a coworker, anyone. Call a domestic violence hotline, make a safety plan. And when you're ready, when you have a moment, leave. Don't tell them you're leaving. Don't give them a chance to stop you, just go, get somewhere safe and don't go back. I won't lie to you, it's hard. Leaving is hard, starting over is hard, single parenthood is hard, therapy is hard, rebuilding your life is hard, but it's worth it, so worth it, because on the other side of that fear is freedom. Real freedom, the freedom to be yourself, to make your own choices, to live without walking on eggshells, to laugh without permission, to exist without fear. Marcus took 3 years of my life. 3 years where I was controlled and diminished and made to feel worthless. But he didn't break me, he didn't win. I got out, I survived, I rebuilt, I found real love, real happiness, real peace. And if I can do it, you can too. You're stronger than you think, braver than you know, you deserve better. You deserve safety and respect and love, real love, not control disguised as love. Lily is starting kindergarten next month. David and I are talking about having another baby. Maybe 2. Emma and Ryan just had their second child. My parents, who stood by me through everything, visit every weekend. I have friends again. Real friends, a book club, a support group for domestic violence survivors where I sometimes share my story to help others. I have a life, a real life, full of love and laughter and peace. Marcus will get out of prison eventually. In 4 years, he'll be 42, I'll be 36. Lily will be 9, and I imagine he'll try to contact me again. Try to be part of her life. Try to explain or apologize or manipulate, but it won't work, because I'm not that scared woman anymore. I'm not someone who can be controlled or manipulated or made to doubt herself. I'm Sarah Torres now, wife, mother, survivor, fighter, winner. That slap 6 years ago was the worst moment of my life, but it was also the moment everything changed. The moment I chose myself, chose my daughter, chose freedom over fear, chose truth over lies, and I've never regretted that choice. Not once, not ever, because every hard day, every struggle, every moment of doubt, it was all worth it to get to where I am now. So thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. If this helped you, if it gave you hope or courage or just the knowledge that you're not alone, please share it. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because I post stories like this to help people, to show people that survival is possible, that healing is possible, that happiness is possible. And remember, you are not alone. You are stronger than you think. You deserve better than abuse. You can leave. You can survive. You can rebuild. You can thrive. Don't let anyone make you feel small or worthless or trapped. You are valuable. You are worthy. You are enough, exactly as you are. My name is Sarah Torres. 6 years ago, my husband slapped me when I told him I was pregnant. Today, I'm free, I'm happy, I'm whole. And if I can do it, so can you. Never give up. Never stop fighting for the life you deserve. Because you deserve everything, everything good, everything beautiful, everything true. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay strong, and never forget your worth.